So you're ready. Let's just make our way onto our backs. My favorite place to be. On my back in a yoga class. It's pretty much my dream come true. So hopefully it's acceptable place to start for you guys tonight. Finding our way into a supported neutral spine and just settling in here. Breathing into as much fluidity as we possibly can. And really taking that idea of fluidity as the only point of direction for the breath. So that smooth, gentle transitions is what we emphasize in our breathing pattern. We'll be here for roughly 60 more seconds here on our back. Last 15 seconds here. On your right, we're going to inhale our hands together so that the fingertips can point towards the ceiling. So we have some nice alignment coming straight out from the shoulders to the wrists, and the palms come together straight above us. And then squeeze the shoulder blades together and push the fingertips up towards the ceiling. You'll note that as the shoulder blades squeeze back, there's actually the tension between the hands is broken, and you really have to work hard to keep that palm connection. But driving the shoulders down and pushing the hands away, really find that length in it's actually a mid-back opener here. And then relax your arms out towards cactus. And as you do that, bring the knees up so that the femur runs vertically. Kneecaps point towards the ceiling. Bottoms of the feet point towards the wall away from you or in the front of you. And just hold that little bit of core tension required here to keep some neutrality in the back. And then we're going to slowly bring the feet down to the mat and bring the hands together, but keep the 90-degree bend of the elbows. So elbows and hands come together here. Fingertips now point towards the wall behind you. And then we'll reverse this shape. So with an inhale, the legs are going to raise and the arms are going to come back out towards cactus. Exhale, palms come together, elbows come together, feet come to the ground. And inhale, we reverse that. Legs lift, backs of the arms and hands come down to the mat and floor. And then just reverse with your exhale. Try to sync the movement here between the arms, legs, and the breath, so that you are reaching the crescendo of each piece of movement as the breath is going into its final stage. And then we just roll that over nice and smooth, just like we started when we were on our back, and we reverse the shape. If you were in yesterday's class, we did quite a bit of work on that mid-back, on that shoulder structure. So you may be feeling some additional sensations here. And let's just do this 2 more times. When you feel like you've completed, no rush to make that happen. It is your breath cycle, and breath cycles can vary widely and wildly. Let's just release the arms back out. You can keep the feet on the ground. We're going to let the knees fall to one side or the other, whatever side feels most ideal. And then we'll press ourselves up into seat and extend the legs out in front of us. Legs extend, toes towards the ceiling. We follow that forward into a fold. Once you get into the full fold capacity for your body, start to lift the chin, start to lift the sternum, and think about trying to find as flat a back as you possibly can. So it's full fold first, and then we work out into as flat a back as we can. And then we'll recycle. So it'll be an exhale back into the full fold, and then an inhale towards neutral spine. And exhale, full fold. And inhale towards neutral spine. We'll go through this a few times. There's some cat-cow elements to this, right? We're articulating the spinal column in a different way than what we would do in cat-cow, but we're certainly warming up that neutral extension into flexion of the spine. So I know this is an atypical way to start Monday night's class, but really just trying to get some mid-body movement here. Let's do this 2 more times, full cycles through in each direction. And when you feel complete, as you feel completed, no rush again, breath can vary wildly. We will transition to hands and knees tabletop. And in hands and knees tabletop, traditional setup, wrist, elbow, shoulder stack, fingers splayed out nice and wide. Create that sensation of stability in the fingerprints. Curl your toes, lift your seat, and find down dog. Now, even though we haven't done anything to the hamstrings yet, we haven't really touched the posterior chain much, right? We've gone to that forward fold sequence. Should be some good room in the middle of back. Try to find that by pressing into the hands, really driving the hips up. And then once you feel like you've connected to the full depth of this first down dog, let's walk ourselves forward and we'll find our way into forward fold, front of the mat. Head, let's go. Toes splay out wide, really bring back in that activation of the feet. I haven't reminded for foot activation in quite a while. So we might find some additional sensation as we do so. Then let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae into our top space, cueing that belly neutrality, cueing that low back neutrality, and just let your body settle in to mountain here. From mountain, let's inhale our arms out towards cactus, trying to keep those elbows right at our shoulder height. I'm really camouflaged tonight. And then bring your hands together at heart center. Try to keep those elbows at heart center. So it's a little bit of a bigger lift, I guess. Hands at face center, elbows at heart center would have been a better way to describe that. And then let's let the arms go back out wide. And then we're going to bring the hands and elbows together again, elbows at shoulder height, hands at roughly face height. And we're going to fold forward with the hands together. Feel the low back's response to this elbow hand connection, and then release your hands down on the mat. Inhale into half lift. Get the full extension here. There's a lot of room in the mid back. Really find that flatness. And then let's exhale back into fold. Plant your hands and walk yourself back into down dog. And as we get into down dog, I do a little bit of furniture arranging. Let's find the depth once again. And then we're going to come down to hands and knees, sink back into child's pose. And as we come back into that child's pose place, settle in so that the tailbone really relaxes down towards the mat. So a lot of times I'm cueing, energizing the tail back. Think about now relaxing into tailbone down. And note you may have a little bit of room around that sacral joint. Try to ease into that tailbone working down, tailbone working down. And let's give ourselves just another 30 seconds here. When you're right, when you're ready, hand slide back out in front of you if you're not already there. Inhale, pull yourself forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, slide your left foot forward into grounded lunge. And then sweep both arms up into grounded crescent. Think about the top of the right foot holding and anchoring you down here, really stabilizing you at that rudder. And then bring your hands together, elbows at shoulder height, hands at roughly face height, and squeeze the shoulders back and feel how that changes the flexion in the thoracic spine. Now extend your right arm straight forward so the elbows can stay together. Right arm goes straight forward, and then spin your left arm back into this little grounded twist. Think about creating maximum distance between the shoulders. And then come back to that heart center position. Elbows together, palms together, shoulder height. Sweep the arms back up. Put the hands back down to the mat. Curl your right toe underneath you, and we'll lift ourselves up into runner's lunge. Push back through that right calf into that right heel, and sweep yourself up into traditional crescent. Good, strong core stability. And now relax your right forearm down onto your left thigh. So we have some stability here. So this is kind of a half shape. And then we're just going to take our left arm straight up. You can turn the gaze towards that left shoulder or palm if it feels accessible to you. But keep in mind, there's a pretty big mid-back ask. Left hand comes down to the mat. Step your left foot back into down dog. Come down to hands and knees. Think back into child's pose. Inhale forward into tabletop. And step your right foot forward and into grounded lunge. Remember to flip that left toe over so we hold that space if you didn't in your child's pose. And then sweep yourself up into grounded crescent. Middle of the back, stable. Hands come down to this heart center place. Heart center-ish place. I don't know how to describe this one. Really think about grounding in that. Then the left arm goes forward and the right arm's going to reach back. Bring those hands back together, heart center-ish. Sweep the arms up. Float the hands down to the mat. Curl the left toe underneath you. Lift into that left quad, runner's lunge. And we'll sweep ourselves up towards crescent. Stabilize in the middle of the body. Left forearm's going to come down on that right thigh. And the right hand's going to work its way up into a little twist. A lot of stability ask, a lot of mid-back rotation ask. Keep the strength on that left quad. And then when you're right hand's going to come down, left hand can come down. We step the right foot back into down dog. And balance out, stabilize out into the depth of this shape. And then let's shift our weight forward into plank. Create the same stability we had in mountain and lower yourself down to your belly. Flip the tops of the feet. Squeeze the elbows in, plant the forehead on the mat. Flex the quads. And just imagine there's a balloon, a tube balloon in between your elbows. So you're holding that balloon up over your back and you're going to try to squeeze it in. Not so much that it pops out from the elbow space, so that it bows and creates an arc right over the middle of the back. And as we do that, pay attention to that thoracic shelf. Right at the bottom of the rib cage, right where the lumbar and thoracic spine meet. And just feel the musculature there and how it is responding to this elbow tension. And we're going to hold this for 10 more seconds. Right. When you're ready, relax, slide the hands underneath your forehead. Little quarter class check-in here. Make sure everything is able to ease and soften. If you need any further adjustments from crocodile, move into them. Give yourself the opportunity to relax here. Everything except the anterior of the shoulders, right? Maintain that shoulder integrity. So there's this old man, very old man, in this hospice facility, and he is quite aware, quite sharp, and quite unhappy. Not just because the end of his time is so close, he's quite conscious of that fact, but because he's just alone in this room, doesn't have any family, all of his friends have passed on. And he is just kind of sitting, thinking about the fact that he's going to be in this room and die alone. And it's bumming him out. When you're right, when you're ready, hands slide back underneath the shoulders. Press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way back into down dog. And we'll take a walk forward to the front of our mat. So we end up in fold, front of the mat. Inhale into half lift. Make sure you get that full neutrality in the back, then exhale all the way back into fold. Check the toes, make sure you're splayed out, sweep yourself up and overhead. Exhale the hands to heart center. True heart center this time. And then we are going to lift the hands up to that half heart center, right? Elbows roughly at shoulder height, hands roughly at face height. Keep that engagement in, broaden up across the shoulders, then slide your, what'll be the easiest to show? Let's do left leg back. And then I step my right, left leg back. Beautiful. So we come into this space. Inhale, open yourself up into cactus. Exhale, elbows, hands come together. Inhale, sweep your arms up into full version of crescent. Exhale, float the hands down to the mat. Inhale, we're gonna sweep ourselves up. Elbows are gonna come together, palms are gonna come together. Exhale out into cactus. Inhale, sweep the arms up. And exhale down to the mat. One more time, let's go through this. Inhale, elbows and palms together. Exhale out to cactus. Inhale, sweep the arms up. Exhale, hands to the mat. Step your left foot forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide the right foot straight back. Sweep yourself up into crescent, hands come to heart center. Set the legs and the torso from this space before we ask the shoulders. Then lift into the shoulder space, elbows together. Exhale out wide, cactus. Inhale, sweep up. Exhale to the mat. Inhale, we sweep up, elbows together, palms together. Exhale out to cactus. Inhale, sweep them up, crescent. Exhale to the mat. One more time, let's sweep up to this heart center, face center space. Exhale out to cactus. Inhale up to crescent. Exhale to the mat. Step your right foot forward so that it mirrors your left. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. As you settle back into the fold, pay attention to the additional room we have in the hips and follow that all the way into the depth of the fold. Really think about taking the top of the head and melting it down towards the floor, elongating the entirety of the posterior chain from the hinge of the hips. Last 5 seconds here in this fold, just feeling the length here. And you're right, when you're ready, roll yourself up vertebrae by vertebrae, and we'll stack ourselves back in mountain. Bring the hands together at traditional heart center. Slide your left foot back and into crescent. And then roll the left heel down and open yourself up into warrior two. Slide back into your right hamstring. Keep that torso centered. Rebend into that right knee. Take the full depth of the shape without taking the torso forward, really maintain that verticalness. Slide back into the hamstring. Come back into warrior two. Last time, let's take that full hamstring space and drift right back into our warrior two. Spin the left heel up, come back into crescent. Lift through that mid-body space. Get that torso nice and vertical. Float the hands down to the mat. We'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Flat back. Exhale back into fold. Roll yourself up, vertebrae by vertebrae. Bring the hands together at heart center. Slide the right foot back. Ground your right heel and open yourself into warrior two. Good, strong alignment here. Slide back into the left hamstring. Rebend that knee. Slide back into the left hamstring. Rebend that knee. And one more time, we slide back into the hamstring. Bend the knee and find the depth of warrior two. Then spin your right heel up, spin both arms up into crescent. Put the hands down to the mat and we'll step the right foot forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Flat back, exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk yourself back into plank. Slowly, gently, delicately lowering ourselves down to our belly, flipping the tops of the feet, flexing the quads, squeezing the shoulder blades down towards your glutes this time. Shoulder blades drive down. And imagine now that we've taken that tube balloon, and we're trying to hold it between the tailbone and the bottom of the shoulder blades. So we're really trying to create tension here, and then try to arc that balloon between the tailbone and the bottom of the shoulder blades as you squeeze those shoulder blades down, and then start to roll the front of the shoulders up towards the ceiling. Shoulder blades squeeze down, front of the shoulders up towards the ceiling. Feel that openness across the anterior high pec minor region. Relax the shoulders, relax your body, slide your hands underneath your forehead, little crocodile pose. Let me breathe here. Big full breaths here. So the staff comes around and checks on everyone every hour. Every hour, this man perks up a little bit as the staff comes in, but he knows they're only going to be there for 5 minutes. They're doing vitals, they're doing drug distribution. And he tells them, I wish I had more company. I wish you guys could stay here at least for a little longer than 5 minutes. And they're like, oh, we get it, but we got to go to the next patient. And they go over to the next patient. And the next patient has the exact same request. He says, I only have 5 minutes or so with you guys. My family's gone. My friends are all passed away. I'd love to have more company. And the staff puts these two together and they move them into the same room. They both wanted the same thing. They both got the same thing. And it immediately improves both of their moods. When you're ready, slide your hands underneath your shoulders. Press yourself up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, curl your toes, lift your seat, find down dog. From down dog, press back from the handprints and lift your right leg straight back and behind you. And when you're ready, we'll step that right foot forward into lunge. Ground the left heel, and then bring your right forearm on top of your right thigh. Extend the left arm straight out so that we're making one line from the hips through the fingers, and really think about the length on that left side of your body. Now roll the left shoulder up just a little bit more and let that left hand arc over your head so you get a little hang energy. Drive energetically into the pinky toe edges of both feet and drive into the toe mount edges of both feet. Drive into the toe prints of both feet and feel the heels of both feet anchor even harder. Re-extend that left arm. Try to push the fingertips as far away from you as you can. Make as long a line as possible. Then spin your left heel up, let your left hand come down to the mat, and take your right hand up into the twist. Now, you've just opened up a ton of rotational capacity. If it feels acceptable, bend your right elbow and start to roll that right elbow behind you towards the left side of your mat. Keep the left quad super strong and active. And then release that right hand down to the mat. Step your right foot back into down dog. Shift your weight forward into plank. Lift your seat back into down dog. And send that left leg straight back in behind you. Get the length and the depth, then step your left foot forward into lunge. Ground your right heel. Bring your left forearm on top of the left thigh. And work that right arm straight out so that you create one long line. Really, you can go from the right ankle to the right fingertips. But if you focus on the hips, that back leg should be nice and straight. Then bend the right elbow, let it hang, the arm hang over, and still maintain that length of the side body. Right side of our body, the area of focus and emphasis. Then re-extend that right arm, reconnect to that idea of full length here. And then spin your right heel up, right hand comes down to the mat. Left arm reaches into the twist. Now, if it feels acceptable, you can bend the elbow, and that allows for a little bit more rotational capacity right in the middle of the back. We're back to working on that thoracic joint. And then release your left arm down to the mat. Step back into down dog. Find the full length of the shape. Shift your weight forward into plank. Find the stability of plank, then lift the seat back into down dog. Lift your awareness to the front of the mat. And we'll step or float into that space. Inhale into half lift. Think about a fully flat neutral spine. Relax back into the fold. Pay attention now to that mid-back expansion. So we went with the hip expansion in this last little forward fold sequence. Now we have this mid-back sequence to tie on to the hip length we've already given ourselves. Really think about elongating as the head works down towards the floor. Last 5 seconds here. When you're right, when you're ready, drift your awareness to your spine and let's roll ourselves up again. So we go vertebrae by vertebrae, really stacking, really feeling each vertebrae click into place as we work our way up. And then eventually getting to this flat neutral sequence of mountain. Bring the hands together at heart center. Squeeze the core like 30%. A big active squeeze in the core. I want it fully locked in, then we sink back into chair. So that when we sink into chair, you feel the mid-back response. The core is so taut that the mid-back is like, I want to bend, I want to go into extension. And we're like, no, we're going to hold you flat and neutral with our core engagement. Rise back up, sweep the arms. And then exhale the hands to heart center. Open the arms up towards cactus. So there's an elbow lift here, and with a little bit of potential shoulder fatigue here, get those elbows up nice and high. And we're gonna lock in the core once again, maybe 35% this time. Pretty hard squeeze, and sink yourself back into chair. And once again, belly wants to go forward. Really lock in, squeeze down like you're trying to compact that abdominal area. And we'll rise back up, arms sweep up and overhead. Exhale into fold. Slide your left foot straight back into lunge. Ground your left heel. Bring your right forearm back on your right thigh. Roll that right shoulder up and let your left shoulder up, and let your left hand come to the small of the back. I'm gonna flip here so that we are palm open on the small of the back. And then think about rolling that left shoulder so that it is working up and behind you, and maybe even take the gaze with you there. And then we'll come back. Left heel spins up, left hand comes down to the mat. Push back with the left heel. And now you have a ton of fatigue in your right hip. We're gonna sweep the arms out in front of us, palms down, hold this for 5 seconds. Release the hands down to the mat, step forward into fold. Pretty good asymmetry across the hips here. Right hip has some real excess sensation. Flat back, neutral spine, half lift, exhale back into fold. Let the head sink into the fold here. Slide your right foot straight back into lunge. Ground your right heel, left forearm onto left thigh. Take the right hand to the small of the back, palm open. Roll that right shoulder. Really drive the right shoulder into the rotation. And then maybe the gaze follows. Stability here provided by that forearm on the thigh so that we can focus on the pullback of that right shoulder. Right heel spins up, right hand comes down to the mat. Now we have that left hip fatigue. Sweep the arms up, palms down, 5 seconds. Hands down to the mat, step the right foot forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Nice work. Exhale back into fold, plant your hands, walk yourself into plank. Create the stability. Think about how hard you have to work on that lower abdominal wall to help stabilize the hips. Maintain that as you lower yourself down to the mat. Flip the tops of the feet. Squeeze the elbows into the rib cage. Splay the fingers out as wide as you can get them. And just hold that energy. Lift the forehead a millimeter off the mat so we just barely break the forehead and the mat connection. Check in with your quads. Make sure you haven't lost that connection to keep the kneecaps lifted. Squeeze into the glutes until you feel the back neutralize. Last 10 seconds here. Relax. Let the hands slide back underneath the forehead for a little crocodile pose. Try to get everything to relax. Try to get everything to ease. Pay attention to the hips. Pay attention to that mid-back joint. So these two men now bunked up together in their hospice facility immediately start talking. They introduce themselves. First man named Barry, second man named Steve. And Steve and Barry start to communicate about their lives. Steve asks Barry, tell me about where you were born. And he says, I was born June 6th in Plano, Texas. And Steve's like, you were born June 6th? That's my birthday. And there's this level of excitement and connection that just instantaneously sparks between these two. Last 15 seconds here. And Barry keeps sharing his stories. We grew up kind of middle class. Steve's like, yeah, me too. When you're ready. Hand slide back underneath the shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, let's curl our toes. We'll lift our seat. We'll find down dog. Get the depth of your down dog. Press into the hands. Create that sensation of pressure between your handprints and energize all the way back into the hips. Some strength pushing down into the hands to push the hips back and behind you. And then let's walk ourselves forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Sweep your arms up and overhead. Exhale the hands to heart center. Traditional heart center, not this tricky heart center I've been working on. And we'll slide our left foot back into lunge. Good, strong mid-body stability. Ground your left heel, open up into warrior two. Slide back into the right hamstring. Rebend the right knee. Bring your right forearm down onto your left thigh and let your left arm reach out for a nice modified version of the side angle. Then we're going to draw with the left arm back up into warrior two. Slide back into the right hamstring. Rebend the front knee, and the right hand's going to come down on the medial edge, big toe edge of the right foot for a more traditional alignment of side angle. Now, generally, when we get into side angle is like the thing we use to warm up for the other shapes, right? Tonight's class has been all about warming up for this side angle. So drive the top of the head towards the front of the room, push into the pinky toe, roll that left shoulder up as high as we can get it, and think about being as long as you can possibly be here in this shape. Left hand comes down, left heel spins up, right hand goes into the twist. Push back through that left quad, through that left heel. Keep the strength on the left side of the body. Right hand comes down to the mat. Fingertips, toe prints, all grip into the mat as we step the left foot forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Sweep the arms up and hands together, heart center. Settle here, stabilize here, find that strength in the mid body. Right foot slides back. Right heel grounds. We roll open to two, warrior two here. Find that width. Slide back into your left hamstring. Rebend the front knee. Left forearm's coming down on that left thigh. Right arm's reaching towards the front of the room. Right shoulder is rolled up, giving us that length and space. Right arm is going to lift us back up, and we're going to find warrior two. Slide back into the left hamstring. Rebend that front knee. Left hand's coming down, medial edge, big toe edge of our left foot for a side angle. Remember, this is really the apex of tonight's class. So we are looking to fully accentuate the potential depth of this shape right here. A shape that I've never seen it used this late in class as the apex. When you're right, when it feels good, right hand comes down to the mat, right heel spins up, left hand opens us up into a twist. Again, maximizing the distance of these shapes. Right quad is super strong, super active. We're pushing back into that right heel as we rotate. Left hand comes down to the mat. We have the toe prints and the fingerprints to help step us forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Seat to heels, malasana to seat. Extending the legs out in front of us into stack. And we're going back into that forward fold we did at the beginning of class. So it's a full forward fold. And then dynamically inhaling spine as flat as we can get it. And then exhaling back into full forward fold. Inhaling into flat neutral back. Exhaling into full forward fold. Inhaling into flat neutral back. And exhaling into full forward fold. Do that 5 more times at your own pace with your own breath. So keep in mind, my pace right there was likely rushing you. And don't fall victim to the fact that I did that to you. And we just breathe fluidly, like we started class. Fluid, inhale and exhale. The exchange between the 2 breath cycles, nice and easy. Now, I'm just saying this because I don't know exactly where you are and I don't want to leave anybody hanging. So don't feel rushed by this. But when you're done, we're just going to come all the way up to staff and roll ourselves back onto our spine. So we end up on our back like we started class. There is 0 rush to get here. It is just that I want you to be aware if your breath cycle is a little bit quicker than everyone else where we're headed, once we do get there, all we're going to do is integrate, right? This is the integration portion of class. This is time I feel there is the most impact and benefit from our practice. We really have quite a lot of awareness over what we've done, especially with an intense structural class like we had tonight. We just want our back, any of the musculature that feels active still, that feels like it's still pulling or too engaged, extra engaged, I guess. We want that to relax. So we're going to offer some more gentle releasing shapes here to take us home. But let's let another 15 seconds of integration happen before we move. When you're right, when you feel ready, the knees are going to bend if they're not. So kneecaps point towards the ceiling. Keep your left foot grounded and draw your right thigh in towards the rib cage. So right knee is bent. We can grab the shin or we can tuck underneath to the hamstring. But lock in the ankle integration here. So for most of us, the big toe is going to want to rotate in towards the midline. Think about big toe and pinky toe pointing straight up towards the ceiling as you compress into that anterior hip capsule. And then we'll all slide the hands to the hamstrings, interlace the fingers on the hamstring musculature, and push the bottom of the right foot towards the ceiling. So left knee stays bent, so you have some slack in the system for this leg extension. But remember, your knee does not need to fully lock out. Just finding a little bit of openness from that compression we have in the hip. And then rebending the right knee and taking your right hand inside your right knee and then out to the outer edge of your foot. If that's not available, you can grab the ankle or the calf without coming to the inside portion. But if we can get this half happy baby, let's do that. And then the goal here is to bend the knee enough that the toe mound sits kind of right over the shoulder or right in line with the bottom of the rib cage. So if we can get it over the shoulder, then we can drive down and that drives the right hip down. If we're over the middle of the rib cage, as we pull with the right hand down, we feel some anchoring right in the middle of the back. So if you imagine the bottom of your sternum and then just go straight through your body, that's where we'd want it. So either right over the shoulder, drawing down, that moves that whole right lateral edge down, or we go right to the middle and drive down into the sternum. And then we'll release that right foot and just settle for a moment. Again, now you have a little bit of asymmetrical release. We reintegrate the space we've created on the right side of the body. If you pay a ton of attention to how your body sits here, the right side of the body is actually more anchored down to the mat. So the right hip is anchored in. Even the right shoulder is more anchored in here. Now we're going to neutralize that, but it's fun to appreciate as well. So first move is we draw that left thigh in when you're ready. Interlace either over the shin or on the hamstring. And we get this anterior compression on that left hip capsule. Remember, there's a pretty active squeeze here, but it's not coming from the biceps. It's not coming from the hands. It's coming from subscapular retraction. So you're feeling the backside of the body hold the thigh towards the sternum, towards the rib cage. And then eventually you're going to feel comfortable with that. And we're going to switch the hands on the hamstring and push that left foot towards the ceiling, remembering that the knee doesn't need to bend, and remembering that the leg is not pulling the torso up. The torso is anchoring down and the leg is lengthening away from that, so that the L shape, the 90-degree bend at the hip, create some openness there in that anterior capsule. And that comes from the pressure we have on the backside of the leg, because you have to push the leg into the hands to maintain that neutrality. And that push forward is what opens up the front of the hip capsule. And then we will bend that left knee and take the left hand either to the inside and out to the outer edge of the foot, or to the ankle without going on the inside, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And then we are positioning the toe mound either directly, left toe mound directly over the left shoulder, or over the sternum. You're putting it right at the bottom of the sternum, whatever feels, again, most appropriate for you. Eventually, we're going to come to a point where we feel nice and balanced. When you feel like it's an equal amount left to right, you can release that left foot down. And as the left foot settles, now pay attention to how the left and right side of the hips anchor. And then you can start to add some sway here to the knees. The movement does not need to be full rotation, but it can be. Barry keeps telling Steve about his life, and he says, I got really good grades in high school. And Steve's like, yeah, me too. And Barry's like, but I didn't end up going to college. He says, I got scholarships all over the country. But when I was looking at the end of my high school career, I just didn't feel like I had enough life awareness, enough life experience to make a decision about what I wanted to push myself into. So I decided that I would join the Peace Corps. Eventually, you just let your knees fall over to one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate. And Steve looks at him, and he has this look of disbelief on his face. And Barry's like, no, it's true. I joined the Peace Corps. And Steve's like, no, it's not that. It's just that after high school, I joined the Peace Corps too. He says, it wasn't my choice. My parents made me do it. They didn't feel like I had enough life experience to know what I wanted to get into, but I was dead set. I had these Ivy League scholarships. I was dead set on going to one of them, but they wouldn't let me. And Barry says, well, Peace Corps was a really good time. And Steve kind of begrudgingly, but he admits it. He says, you know what? It was probably the right thing to do. And they continue talking. They talk about their experience in the Peace Corps. And it turns out they were in all of the same places. They were just there at different times. When you're right, when you're ready, knees come back to neutral. And we'll let them fall over into that second side. And every time Barry shares one of these things he made, he's like, and then I made the choice. I was going to go to Geneva. And I made the choice. I was going to go to Berlin. And Barry just can't, Steve just can't believe that Barry has made all these choices, because they were the same places he was sent to. And then I talk about when they left the Peace Corps. They went back, they checked in with their scholarships, and they were still both accepted to Ivy League schools. They ended up going to school about a couple hundred miles away from each other. One at Princeton, one at Harvard. When you're feeling right, as you're feeling balanced, and just as a heads up, we got about 15 more seconds before we are balanced. But when you are feeling right, when you are feeling ready, just as a precursor, bring yourself back to neutral. And as you come back into that neutral alignment, give yourself a moment to integrate. And as that integration is setting in, let your eyes close. And as you settle there, think about what your body might want or need before you're all the way into Shavasana. And then offer whatever your body's asking you for. Offer that before you settle in. And when you are ready, as you are right, just settle into a shape where you'll be able to appreciate fully and completely your Shavasana tonight. So these two talk about their Ivy League experience, and it is, a couple hundred miles in separation, but virtually identical. The only glaring difference is Barry chose that he was going to go to Princeton, and he didn't get that choice. Again, his parents told him, his dad went to Harvard. He was going to Harvard. They were going to accept him. He was going there. There was no choice. But other than that, the experiences were virtually identical. And then after they graduated, they both went into the metal alloy business. Barry went there because he got really interested in metal alloys while studying at Princeton. And Steve, because his dad wanted to retire from his metal alloy business. And they both became fabulously wealthy. They both met women and both got married. And all throughout, there's this conscious difference is that Barry is making the choices. And Steve's choices just keep seeming to happen to him. But the outcomes of the experience are so similar. Both of them are shocked and stunned. And they're both getting super excited. When you're ready, just releasing here completely into your shape. the excitement of the interaction between Steve and Barry, as unbeknownst to them, burned up the remaining energy they had in their lives. And Barry's been talking this whole time. He looks over at Steve and he says, Steve, I think I need to go now. And Steve looks back at Barry and he says, I think I'm going too. And both of them turn their head from looking at one another to straight up gazing at the ceiling. And as they do that both simultaneously, without knowing the other is going to do it, they say, what a life. Same exact time. And then again, at the same exact time, Barry says, I wouldn't change a single thing. And Steve says, I wish I could do everything differently. And at the end of that sentence, both of them take their last exhale on this planet. And we start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes, into our wrists and our ankles, into our elbows and our knees, hips and shoulders. As the hips and shoulders are moving here, feel the mid-back response to that movement. Neck and head starts to come into play, jaw starts to come into play, eyes start to come into play. Eventually, we use the movement traveling through our body to transition from the shape we are in back into a seat. And in the seated space, our spine gets tall, our breath gets fluid. Eyes closed. And we'll inhale our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself it is about far less about the decisions that you actually make and much more about how consciously you make those decisions, and see how that changes your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of tonight's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. So nice to get to spend an hour with you. Enjoy the heck out of your week. I'll be back on Sunday if you want to recharge, and we'll do this again next Monday. Love the heck out of you. Mwah.